Sure. My name is Gordon Moore, Gordonmoore.
Okay, now I'll start the interview.
Okay.
So Gordon, tell me your name, your title, and your business here.
My name is Gordon Moore. I'm the Vice President for McCormick Motors here in Nappanee, Indiana.
Okay. How long have you been in business here?
I have been in the business here at the dealership since 1997, so about 12 years. That followed a 23-year Army career.
Okay. Tell me, where are you? How long have you lived in this area, in this community?
I've lived in this community. Let me start over.
Okay.
Because you want that. I'm trying to think how you would like that rephrased as a question.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I'm just saying. I've lived up here for.
All right. Good. I've lived in this community since 1997. I actually was here for 1 year in kindergarten, so I'm not unfamiliar with the area. My family is from this area. My mother lived here, grew up here in the 20s and 30s, and my uncle grew up here as well.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about Nappanee and the surrounding area here. And there's a lot of Amish I've noticed being up here, and this community is a little different as far as their diversity and their backgrounds. There's a lot of people that have skilled trades, they've worked in manufacturing and stuff like that. So just overall, this community, the answer would be kind of this community up here in this area is...
Nappanee is a very unique community. In fact, this whole part of the country is very unique. There's a very strong entrepreneurial spirit in this area. We have a great mixture of two different cultures, our normal culture, and then we have an Amish culture here. They've woven themselves in very well into the community as well as into business. It's a conservative community. It's a rural community, and a lot of blue-collar workers live in this area. This is probably one of the highest concentration of blue-collar workers anywhere in the country. But we also have some very innovative and creative people here. We're not a Silicon Valley, but we have people that are very, very good with taking what I would call applied science, and taking pure science and applying it to products that people can actually use.
Okay, good answer. Tell me a little bit about, we'll go into the business here. With the car sales kind of coming off this high time of the 90s with SUVs and trucks that were just selling as fast as they could make them. Tell me a little bit about going through that trend and what you've seen now, where we are today with your sales and the whole, I guess, even an overview nationally.
Okay. Our business is, we're a Chevrolet dealership, and we're located in a very small community. It's 6,500 people. Annually, we sell about 4,000 vehicles, and in order to do that, we had to do some things differently than most dealerships. When this dealership was founded in 1953, they sold 3 cars a month and no trucks. We've grown to change that mix. We don't sell very many more cars than that. We'll sell 4 or 5 cars a month, sometimes as high as 10, but we'll sell several hundred trucks a month, and that's kind of been the change in what people are buying. It also underscores that we sell a lot of commercial vehicles to a lot of different trades. In terms of how the auto industry has been changing, it's been an incredible change. I arrived at the dealership in 1997. There were 2 computers. We now have 38 computers. Everything we do is tied to the internet. Everything we do is tied to computers that allow us to diagnose these new vehicles. They're incredibly complex vehicles, and our technicians have to spend at least 2 weeks in training every single year to keep up with the changes in technology. In terms of the auto industry and how it's grown, the auto industry annually has been selling 15 to 17 million vehicles. As you may have read, this last year that number has dropped to about 10 million vehicles a year. So obviously there's been some dramatic changes that a lot of people have had to undergo. It's interesting how sales and the kinds of vehicles have changed. There have been a lot more cars that have been sold, although I would tell you there's still a tremendous number of trucks and larger vehicles that people still buy, and they buy them because they need them. Tying our energy policy to the price of gasoline is going to be a tough road to hoe, because gasoline is very, very volatile. Last summer it was $4 a gallon. This summer it's $2.50 a gallon. So there needs to be something that allows us as an industry to create the right kinds of vehicles based upon some very predictable templates. And I would say gasoline right now is not very predictable. We're seeing a change in the buying habits of people. They're going to smaller SUVs, smaller trucks, some cars when it's appropriate, but there are still people that come in and still need a larger SUV or a van type vehicle in order to transport their family from point A to point B. So far as commercial vehicles go, we've not seen much of a change. Most commercial companies buy the most economical vehicle that they can find, both entry-level cost and also in life cycle costs, how much it's going to cost them to operate it. And we have seen a growing trend of people that are in business to get more fuel economical vehicles. We sell a lot more vans, for example, with smaller engines than we do with larger engines. But there are some instances when they have to tow trailers, they have to tow equipment, and those needs have to be met by vehicles that may not be as economical to operate as we would like, but they have a requirement to perform a particular function.
Okay. Great answer. Indiana has a lot of satellite companies that supply Detroit with parts. We started this documentary because of BorgWarner. It's been around 100 years, closing its doors. There's been plants all over this state in particular that have been affected with the shrinking of Chrysler and GM and Big Three in total. How do you see that kind of effect here around this area, and how do you think that people will be able to kind of bounce back from this effect?
The downsizing of the number of vehicles that are being produced obviously has a great effect on suppliers, and it impacts us directly because we may not be able to get the repair parts that we need. It impacts our local companies directly because some of them may have lost all their business. Those that were supplying parts for Pontiacs, for example, they no longer have anything to supply to. Those that were supplying to the medium-duty truck business for General Motors will no longer have anything to supply parts for. They either need to be able to change very rapidly or they will be out of business. If they had not diversified up to this point, it is very difficult to take all of your manufacturing, find another customer, be competitive to break into that market, and then produce for that customer. So in many instances, those companies that had not previously diversified, had not previously hedged their bets with other customers that they could supply product to, would be out of business. We recognized this ourselves 10 years ago. We had a retail business and we supplied a lot of vehicles to the RV industry. And we recognized that should the RV industry have a problem, we would have a major problem. So we began diversifying the chassis that we sell to other industries, specifically to the shuttle bus industry and to the ambulance industry. And although it's been very, very difficult for us, we have been able to weather the storm so far in pretty good order. The closing of the GM medium duty business has been a major blow to us. Up to really April of this year when they made that announcement, we were in good shape. But when they made that announcement, 60% of our business evaporated overnight. And that's not a function of not having a customer, it's a function of not having a product to sell. We have since picked up a couple other brands. We're going to work with those brands. One of them is Hino, which is the medium-duty truck for Toyota. We hope to pick up, verbally we've been told we will be picking up Isuzu, which is another Japanese company that makes medium-duty trucks. And we will work with those companies so that we have the proper chassis to again supply to these various vocations.
Good answer. Give me a good tie in there with the RV industry. Kind of talked a little bit about trends already. Let's talk a little bit about this area and tying in the RV industry, since you kind of put it in there. The RV industry has been hit pretty hard. When I talked to, I think it was Gary Schroeder, he said it was not so much the gas cost, it was the credit crunch that really did them in. People were starting to slow down before that, but overall the unemployment up here in Elkhart County is one of the highest in the nation. So they're trying to kind of reinvent ways that they can make their products cheaper and get back into customers and showrooms and stuff like that, because the places that would even have them in the showroom couldn't get credit. How do you think businesses like the RV industry kind of parallel what's going on with the regular auto industry, and the ways that they have to be more creative to get back into this game, kind of?
The RV industry is really one to watch in terms of trends. We actually saw this downturn in the automotive industry with the downturn in the RV industry, and that has traditionally been the case. The RV industry has been really kind of the canary in the coal mine of what's going to happen. It also is an indicator that what happens here in Elkhart, Indiana, is impacted by what happens around the country. The real problem that the RV industry had, they had a small blip on the screen, relatively speaking, when gas got to $4 a gallon. But when people are only driving 10,000 miles a year, which on average that's what RVers are driving, that's not really a deal breaker. What really has crushed the RV industry is the credit market. What happened in California, what happened in Florida, what happened in Nevada with the credit crunch and the foreclosures absolutely hit the RV industry. And it impacted companies not only in this part of the country, but it impacted companies out in California. It impacted companies up in Canada. For us specifically, we were supplying chassis to an RV company out in California. They went out of business. We were supplying chassis to an RV company up in Canada. They went out of business. They went out of business because their dealers could no longer get credit to floor plan their product. When they lost their credit lines, all of that finished product went back to the manufacturer. So the manufacturers of these vehicles were getting literally hundreds of vehicles back. And their bankers at some point said, we can no longer tolerate this. And that's what caused them to go out of business. So when you see companies like Bigfoot Industries, Weekend Warrior, Monaco, Fleetwood, all of those folks ran into a terrible credit crunch. Now, all of those companies were run differently, some of them poorly, some of them quite well, but they all faced the same sort of problem, which was a credit crunch. I can tell you that's not restricted just to the RV industry. We supply units, as I said earlier, to the shuttle bus industry. Each one of those shuttle bus manufacturers has their own dealer network. Each one of those dealers requires a credit line in order to maintain vehicles so that they can have them available to sell. Those dealers have also had problems getting credit because of this entire credit crunch. So the wholesale credit market has been frozen to the point where it is absolutely frozen up industry. And for example, we had over $1 million of shuttle bus product that was tied up to go to a state entity because that local shuttle bus dealer had lost his line of credit, because that credit line decided we're no longer going to be involved in this industry. Same problem with ambulances, same problem with roll-off wreckers. These are all very capital intensive kind of products. Each one of these vehicles is about $100,000 each. And it doesn't take a lot of vehicles to tie up in a tremendous amount of capital very, very quickly. Am I seeing a loosening of that? Not very much. It's still incredibly tight. And until that market gets some confidence back and the pendulum swings the other way to loosen up those credit lines with reasonable and appropriate controls over those credit lines, then we're going to see this continued slowing of business.
Good answer. Let's talk a little bit about the hybrid cars and green cars that are coming out, and there's a lot of talk there that everything's going to go that way, and is the demand really there? Who are the customers there, and the efficiency of it, and also just what do we do with these batteries after their life cycle? So, and I know you've gone to the conference about the batteries. I know you have a background, selling these, and you've looked at the numbers and what's working and what's not. So, kind of maybe just give me an overview of this transition into these hybrid / smart cars, or whatever the industry's terming them.
Hybrid vehicles they're nothing new. They've been around for quite some time. There have been a lot of people trying to work on these. General Motors obviously has. Toyota has been the most successful at it least from a commercial standpoint. My views are not from a lot of personal experience in terms of selling a lot, because we haven't sold very many hybrids here. We really haven't had a lot available to sell. But it does come from a background of studying the industry very, very carefully. Last year I spent one day up in Chicago learning about batteries, a whole day about batteries, and gripping stuff. But it was very interesting, and there are a lot of challenges on the horizon, not only on building smaller batteries that last longer, but what we do with those batteries when we're done with them. Probably the biggest thing is to take away from that I would tell you is that we need to get the appropriate hybrid product with the correct application for the vehicle. Toyota did a great job. They took a small vehicle, inexpensive, for a commuter kind of vehicle, and that's what they put their hybrid on. They've been very successful with it. General Motors, on the other hand, decided to put a hybrid vehicle into a Tahoe. It's a $50,000 plus vehicle. It's a great system, but frankly, when you can afford a vehicle that's that expensive, you probably really don't care what the price of gasoline does get to. So if being green is your thing, then yes, you'll buy that hybrid, but otherwise you won't, because it's a very expensive product. At the end of the day, people have to see a cost benefit to whatever it is they're doing. Schwann's, for example, has had propane-powered vehicles for decades. They put propane in and converted those at great expense so that the fuel would not taint the food that they're carrying around. So there was a specific need, and they came up with a specific solution. We're going to see a lot of different solutions out there, potential solutions. And I think we're all struggling with this. We're all trying to find the right answer to the question. In the shuttle bus industry, for example, last year at BusCon, which is their annual convention, every single manufacturer had some sort of either hybrid or alternative fuel vehicle. Prices ranged on that outfit anywhere from $15,000 to $75,000. Everybody's struggling to come up with the right answer. And for that particular industry, that probably may make the most sense for some sort of commercial hybrid, because there's a lot of stop and go and a lot of idle. Just like UPS and FedEx have experimented, and I think UPS has done it most successfully with delivery vehicles. A lot of stop and go, a lot of idle, a lot of potential for savings. But that's not the way everybody operates their vehicle. So as an individual, you've got to figure that out. How am I operating my vehicle, and what's the most appropriate application of either a hybrid or an alternative fuel vehicle? We will be doing propane conversions on our GM 6-liter gas engine here as soon as they get certification on the kit. We're doing that because we've got a demand from colleges, universities, some municipalities for something that is an alternative fuel vehicle that is going to be emission-free, essentially, operate efficiently, and save them some money. So there's a multitude of challenges out there, and we'll come up with some. I mean, there are going to be some bad ones that come up. I mean, it's just inevitable that's going to happen. But out of that whole process, we're going to come up with some different kind of vehicles, with some different kinds of powertrains. I mean, up to this point, it has been two basic powertrains, gas and diesel. And we're now entering an age where there's going to be some other alternatives. And we're going to have to make some sacrifices and some compromises on what we have on these vehicles. And that will not be easy.
Kind of to tie into that answer, Indiana's getting a lot of companies interested in this area. There's one in Anderson, there's talk even in Muncie and up in this area, these different companies that have different ideas and these different solutions, and talking to the federal government. And why do you think it's specific to Indiana? Is it the work base? We know Indiana has always been known as engineers and entrepreneurs, whether it was the BorgWarner guys tinkering in their garage 100 years ago that came up with the best transfer case, or what it is really that's bringing these companies here, and the hopes that people in these towns are having that they can get these industries back, these manufacturing industries. What is your thoughts and opinions of that, just general?
Well, Indiana, I think, is well situated in the country to really take advantage of a number of different advantages. We've got a great workforce here. We've got a great infrastructure here. The governor's has expended a lot of effort to improve that. We have a tremendous entrepreneurial spirit here, and we have a history of in the automotive industry right here in this state, and that will, I believe, will continue to remain here because we have an entrepreneurial spirit. We can take pure science and we can apply it and make things that people can actually use. And that is a major part of the challenge is taking what's on a piece of paper or an idea that somebody has and actually apply it and package it into a product that becomes useful to people. And Indiana is one of these places where we still make some things. We make a lot of things, and we take pride in what we do. There are a lot of creative people in this state. Some of them come right out of our Amish community. Those folks especially have some very, very clever ideas. And they will go back to some old common sense solutions to come up with some very new, innovative ways of doing things. And there may be some ways that we might even be able to learn from those folks. Some of the most independent, off-the-grid places that we have in this area are our Amish neighbors.
Okay. One question that, and go earlier with you, kind of popped a little bit of backpedaling. With this documentary, we've been interviewing a lot of workers at BorgWarner and even around the area, generations of people. And the auto industry as a whole is trying to reshape itself. They have a huge load they're carrying with these retirees' benefits and stuff that Toyota and Honda don't really have to carry. So in the restructuring of GM and Chrysler and stuff, do you think, how much does that have to play in that, in your personal opinion? And how are they going to come out of this redefined and being able to run more efficiently? There's
a fundamental difference, I think, in the way the public looks at domestic companies and the way they look at foreign companies and the way those two kinds of companies operate. I've lived overseas for over 12 years of my life, so I've seen a lot of different companies operate, both in Asia and in Europe. One big difference is that although Toyota and Honda and the rest of these companies do not have union workers, they do a good job of taking care of their workers. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to keep them. General Motors does a great job of taking care of their workers as well, but there seems to be a fundamental distrust between the workers and the company, which has led us to where we are today. And it's not the most efficient way to deliver those kind of services that you need. We're not a union shop here. We provide health care benefits to our employees. We charge them $1 a week. It's a $500 deductible plan. We have a retirement plan for our employees. We have any one of a number of other benefits that we offer up to our employees. And that all goes with trying to keep your workforce happy and keeping your best people employed. I don't know if our domestic companies and the union are going to be able to work together. They've got to. They have got to work together or we're not going to make it. Most of northern Indiana, there are very few union shops here. There are very few union workers here, and the employees get paid a very good wage for what they do, for the skill level that they have. There are some issues out there with health care and with retirement plans. They basically, some companies provide it, other companies do not, which goes into the larger debate of the health care program that we have in this country. But to your basic question on whether they're going to be able to be competitive, the answer is yes, they will. They've got to, or they're going to be out of business.
Right. Okay, that's great.
I'm not sure if I hit that.
Yeah, it was just kind of they're going into this restructuring. I mean they're upside down with carrying these retirees' benefits, and that's just what seems to be really bogging them down. That's what we're hearing a lot of, and I just wanted your opinion on that. And the fact that they just came out of bankruptcy, Chrysler and GM, being able to lighten that load and be competitive with Honda and Toyota that don't have those retiree burdens and stuff like that going on.
I don't know if GM and Chrysler, I'm not familiar enough with the details of what they've actually negotiated, whether they've been able to shed enough of those legacy costs. That's part of their problem. Another bigger part of their problem is their corporate culture and how flat the organization is and how much they're able to cross-fertilize and cross-talk with each other and gain efficiencies by improving their processes. And that's one of the key things that I think both those companies need to look at. They need to improve not just what they're doing, but how they're doing it. Because unless you fundamentally change your culture and your process, then nothing really changes. Now, I've been through a culture change in a very large organization. I was commissioned in the military in 1974. I was put in Vietnam era Army, and we went through an absolute metamorphosis in the late 70s, early 80s that absolutely changed everything that the Army did. How we trained, how we equipped, but most importantly, how we thought. And it was an entire education process of an entire generation of soldiers, non-commissioned officers, and officers. Had that change not been taken place, then what happened in the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War never would have occurred. That was an Army that was absolutely completely different than the Army that came before it. The Army had learned, if they learned nothing else, they learned that they've got to constantly be changing, and they're going through another change.